second thing is screwing it onto the paintball tank. Now you have to use an adapter, which the adapter is made by Aquatek also. There are other companies that make adapters, but I chose to do everything Aquatek. So the adapter is great, it works good. The only thing is that when you have to take off the regulator and everything to replace the cylinder, you really want to make sure that you take it off from here. If you take it off from here, and there's still some pressure in there, it'll scare the shit out of you because it did to me. Because when I took it off, this thing practically just flew out of my hand, and all this CO2 leaked out really quickly. So just really make sure that you take it off from the blue part. Do not take it off from this part. I made that mistake because when I started to screw it off, I wasn't looking down, and I just kept screwing, and I was just like doing whatever, and I didn't notice that I was unscrewing only this part, because usually I unscrew everything because I know what will happen if I don't, and I wasn't looking, and it practically just made this huge sound and scared the crap out of my mom too. And yeah, it was just pretty wild. So make sure that you unscrew both of these parts together. But usually when the CO2 tank is empty, it'll usually tell you on the little gauges right here, they'll usually be all the way down to 0. And when you do that, there shouldn't be a lot of pressure that will come out, so it really won't be that loud, but if you do it from here, it'll be a little loud. Also, you want to make sure that you screw it down all the way as far as you can, because I noticed that whenever I would screw it down just to where it was tight, I would wake up in the morning and this thing would be all loose and it would almost be falling off of the tank. So if you want to make sure you screw it down all the way, or else the regulator will practically just unscrew itself over the night. And also CO2 will be leaking out into your house, which isn't good if everything's closed up. It's not good to breathe this stuff in. So yeah, make sure you screw it all the way down. That's the hard part. You just got to make sure you have a really strong wrench to do that. Yeah, and just don't be afraid to do it. Nothing's going to happen. It's not going to explode or anything. Just make sure you screw it down as far as you can. But it's a good regulator. It works well. It's just the CO2 tanks are so tiny, they don't last that long. That's why I talk about in pretty much all my videos. I'm going to be buying maybe a 20-pound or 10-pound CO2 tank in the future, just so I don't have to go to the paintball shop so often. But as far as how long they last, it seems that they last about 2 weeks, which is nothing. It's pretty crazy that I have to refill these things every 2 weeks. What I did was I bought 2 tanks so that it would last me a month. So I recommend doing that. You could buy more, but it's just not necessary. I mean, if you're going to buy more tanks or CO2 tank or paintball CO2 tanks, you might as well just buy a regular tank so you don't have to go so often. But yeah, they're cheap to refill. At my local paintball shop, it's only $2. At another shop that's a little bit closer to my house, it's $4. So I mean, it varies, but try to find one that's the cheapest, because CO2 is very inexpensive, and for a shop to charge $4 per tank is a little crazy. So if you can find one that's even less than $2, I recommend going there. But yeah, it's a good little setup and it works really good. It just doesn't last that long, so that's the only downside. So I would recommend that you just buy the regulator, because the regulator is, it's okay, and just use a regular CO2 tank so it lasts a lot longer. But pretty much it works just like it's supposed to, like a pressurized CO2 system is supposed to work, and it does its job. Plants grow really fast, and yeah, just make sure you have a good diffuser or a reactor, whatever you plan to use. For me, I actually had my ceramic disc in my tank, but I chose to put the output of my CO2 close to the water pump from my wet dry filter that pumps water back into my tank. I chose to put it right in front of there, so the microbubbles go into there. It gets all mixed up with the impeller that's inside of the water pump, and then it goes back into the tank into these really tiny microbubbles, and it pretty much diffuses CO2 a little bit better that way. The only downside is there are a lot of microbubbles in the tank, but they're hardly noticeable, so I mean, it's not really a big deal. But if you're very anal about having crystal clear water and no little bubbles in it at all, it would kind of irritate you. But for me, I mean, it doesn't. It's honestly, it's the same tank I had before I added CO2, so to me. But yeah, it works good. It's cheap. I mean, there are regulators out there that are way more expensive, and that's why I was so happy I found Aquatek, because it was so cheap. I paid $60 for the regulator, and for the tank was like 20 bucks. The adapter was like another 15 bucks. So I mean, it's a pretty cheap setup compared to other setups that you can buy that are upwards of $200–300. So yeah, the only thing I recommend is just buying a really good diffuser, because if you buy one like I have off of eBay, a really cheap one, it won't work as good as it could be, you know. So I recommend buying one from a really good company like Dr. Foster's and Smith or whatever. They really don't have a lot of good diffusers on their website, actually, so I probably shouldn't even mention them. But yeah, just find a company that sells really good diffusers that creates where the diffuser creates really good microbubbles. That's the best way to diffuse CO2 into your tank, is when the microbubbles don't float to the surface that quickly. They have contact with the water a lot more. So that's all I wanted to talk about in this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any more questions about my CO2 setup, I'll be happy to answer them. Just send me a message or a comment, whatever. So yeah, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.